background check or background screening is the compiling of information about an individual, usually from which someone will make a decision. So a contracting decision or an employment decision, and it's usually done in an employment context, but it can also be done if you're doing it for insurance or other purposes as well. So background checks are regulated both at the federal and the state level. In order to do a background check, you need to get the individual's authorization, you have to make certain disclosures, and you have to know what it is that you're doing the background check for or on. So the different types of services that you might want to look at, a criminal or a driving check, you may want to do a drug screening or a sex offender check, but it will again depend on the reason you're doing the background check and the company you're doing the background check for. So a background check is a point-in-time search. So generally it's going to show historical information. When I talked about a criminal record check, what it'll do is it'll show somebody's criminal record history. Sometimes they'll show arrest information, but most often what you're looking for is conviction information, because not every arrest results in a conviction. Depending on the role they're holding, you may also want to do a driving history check. So that's going to look at usually 3 or 5 years of motor vehicle driving history. May tell you if they've had infractions, if they've had speeding issues, making sure, of course, that they have a license that is active, it's not suspended, revoked, or expired. A sex offender check would be a check against the National Sex Offender Registry to see if the individual has been required to register as a sex offender. There's different kind of criminal database checks that can be done as well. And then you also want to include something around the identity verification. So all of these checks are run on the name, date of birth, and social security number of the individual. You want some part of your background check to include a verification of that data so that you know the identifiers you're using to run these other checks are accurate and complete. Somebody may have changed their name, they may transpose their month and date of birth, and any of those kind of changes can have an impact on the results that are returned. So a background check will take generally anywhere between 2 and 4 days. Obviously, it's going to depend on the type of searches that you're doing. So some searches, like a database search or a federal criminal search or even the identity search, could be back in minutes. Some of those are almost instantaneous. When you're starting to check county court records, that will vary by the jurisdiction that you're checking. Some, again, are automated and could come back quite quickly. Some, depending on the jurisdiction, may take hours or days. So it really will depend as well on how many jurisdictions you're checking. Obviously, one check in Orange County, Florida could come back today. But if somebody has moved around a lot in a given time frame and you're checking 5 or 6 different jurisdictions, that could take a little bit more time. So when I answered the question earlier, I was thinking of it from the contractor standpoint. I mean, typically PlusOne screens contractors for in-home service networks. So we're not generally concerned about some of the more common HR checks, like an employment or an education verification. Those can certainly be done. Again, they're not as relevant when you're dealing with contractors where your primary concern is mitigating risk, but those are checks that could be done. There may be certain drug testing that's done on an individual as well. But again, it always backs up to, why is the organization doing the check? Are there any requirements? Some industries may be regulated and you have to do a certain kind of check. But for PlusOne, when we're dealing with in-home contractors, we tend to be focused on kind of what we call crim driving drug aspects. So things that will potentially bring a risk to your organization's service network.